Hello, my name is Miguel Hernandez-Bronchud. In the year 2011, Hamilton House Publishing produced two of my ebooks, both of which I would like to draw to your attention. They are both concerned with a very complex and controversial issue, God. I should like to point out at the start that I am a Cambridge-trained natural scientist and an Oxford-trained cancer physician. It is quite obvious to me that the subject of God falls into neither category. In spite of this subject of God is close to both my heart and my clinical practice. In this 21st century, in a post-Christian Europe, and at least in the Western world in a secular age, thinking or talking about God in public or in private has become rather unusual and even uncomfortable. Cancer, although a devastating disease and a major cause of human suffering and death, can be now cured in over half of the cases. It is only when it comes to serious personal or family circumstances, such as may be encountered when suffering from an incurable cancer, that the afflicted and their families begin again to turn to the subject of God or to ask difficult questions about our human existence. But what sort of sense does the concept of God make today in our secular age? I try to answer this rather difficult question in my second book, In Search of a Missing God, which was published in English last year as an ebook on both Apple and Amazon. It is inevitably a peculiarly personal search, inspired by the thousands of patients with cancer and their close relatives over my past 3 decades as a practicing cancer physician in England and Spain, but also across the world, from the United States of America to Italy, France, Portugal and other countries. People confronted with cancer and the possibility of imminent death start often asking very difficult questions of themselves, and at times to sympathetic doctors and nurses willing to listen. For example, if God exists, why is there suffering? If God does not exist, what will happen to me when I die? Shall I never again see my relatives and loved ones? Are there any hopes of an afterlife, a reincarnation, a hell or a paradise? These eternal questions are obviously not scientific, but the book is filled with hope-driven hypotheses which are a true invitation to think. Thus, while the first book, From Stones to God, is an invitation to travel in space and time, the second book, In Search of a Missing God, is an invitation to think. Where is God? Who am I? Where shall I go when I die? Why did God make mankind if He exists? Why did mankind make God if He does not exist? The argument I've used, or at least the main basic argument, illustrated in the book by some of the most spectacular paintings I've seen in my lifetime, was Descartes' cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. The great 17th century philosopher, whose works inspired scientists like Isaac Newton, amongst others, who, like him, was a great believer in God and the powers of alchemy. It is thus I explain the difficulties of pure materialism in explaining not only the origins of the universe, but also the true nature of matter and material objects, in particular our own thoughts and consciousness. From what is matter made? The obvious answer is atoms and subatomic particles. But will scientists ever discover the real, most elementary building blocks of matter? I share the view that as we identify smaller and smaller bricks of the material universe, it will come to a point when matter no longer exists as such, not even energy-related matter, as postulated by the general theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, or the more recent superstring theories. I share with the Kabbalists the intuition or belief that deep down there is matter not related to physical energy, but to the energy of thought. This is often called energy intelligence, and in the book I call it informa, for inner form, or information. Thus, for example, if I give my jacket to a friend, I am left without my jacket. But if I share my thoughts and beliefs, I still keep with me my thoughts and beliefs. Thoughts, like feelings, are not material. They do not seem to obey the laws of matter. And perhaps all objects in the universe retain some non-material energy intelligence within them, or inner form. This is of course particularly likely of thoughts themselves, and consciousness could turn out to be a living organization of information. Thus, when we die, the question is, where does this information go? Where do our thoughts, feelings and memories go? Is there a hard disk of the universe with eternal memory? Of course, if memory mechanisms fail, as in the case of Alzheimer's disease, or as in the fading of recent dreams when we awake, this living organization of information in our minds can no longer be remembered, but this does not mean that it no longer exists. Perhaps information can, under very special circumstances, as at the time of the Big Bang, become material or partially material. As a cancer doctor, our first goal is, of course, to try to cure our patients, or in the worst of cases, to relieve the symptoms and help in the most difficult and awesome circumstances. Death is our ultimate experience, yet we seem to ignore it completely. Why have we largely stopped believing in death as that magical transition of the soul back towards our Lord and Creator? Why have we given up the concept of God? We seem to have drifted away, not only from beliefs, but also from hope. And I'm not sure we have gained anything from this.